In this video, I'll show you a list of the absolute best world index funds to invest in. I'll show you how to compare and contrast all of these funds with fees and performance and everything else. And then at the end of this video, I'll ask a simple question. Are these world index funds the absolute best thing to invest in? If you're new to investing or buying exchange traded funds, I'll quickly go over some of the terms that you'll need to know. And you can use these to compare funds across lots of different providers. These are standardized terms across the industry. So AUM, assets under management, that's just how big the fund is. The more people that have put money into fund, the more assets will be managed in that fund. And usually bigger funds mean that is a broad, popular type of fund that most people are putting the majority of their money in. Expense ratio is how much the fund actually costs. There's a management fee each year, and that will be automatically taken out of the amount of the fund that you held. So that's a percentage. It's usually, let's say 10 or 15, maybe 20 basis points. So 0.1, 0.2%, something like that. The yield here is dividend yield. Because we're buying international companies in these funds, they pay dividends. And so the amount of the dividend that you get, that will be worked out as a percentage of the price of the fund, right? So if the shares are trading at $1,000 and you get a $10 yield for that year, that's a 1% yield. And that can change over time depending on the price of the fund and the amount of cash that's paid out. NAV, net asset value. You don't have to worry about this too much because these ETFs are all open-ended. Net asset value is the actual value of the assets held in the fund. So that can be company shares, for example. Now the ETF, the fund itself, that is traded in the market, and that price can fluctuate up and down in relation to the actual value of the assets held. However, we don't have to worry about this because these funds are open-ended. What should usually happen is that the real value of the shares held in the fund and the price of the fund should basically be 1-to-1, and we don't have to worry about that. One thing we may have to worry about though is what currency that the fund is listed in. And so you'll have a fund of assets, and that same fund can be listed in multiple different currencies to trade against. So it'll be listed against dollars, pounds, euros, Hong Kong dollars, for example, Japanese yen. You can see them right here on the share class currency. The same funds listed in different currencies here. For the most part, people will choose the currency of the country that they're living in because that's what your liabilities are in. So you have the fund, it has a performance, and then you can just sell the fund into the currency that you want. We'll get onto currencies later on in the video as well, because of course these are international companies and they have exposure to different currencies, and it can get complex in terms of what type of fund that you actually want to go ahead and buy. Exchange listings as well. Well, whichever brokerage that you use, you'll have a list of assets that you can go ahead and buy. For the most part, if you're in a Western country, you'll have access to many different exchanges like London Stock Exchange, European exchanges, American exchanges, no problem. You can have a lot of assets that you can buy. And again, it's going to matter where you live and what currency that you want to trade it in. And of course, we also have accumulating and distributing funds. This is coming down to dividends again. So accumulating funds receive all of the dividends from companies, keep that cash in the fund and reinvest it automatically. Distributing funds, they take the dividends from the companies and then pass that cash directly back to you. Now, this has implications for tax as well. Accumulating funds pay tax within the fund and nothing comes back to you, so you don't have to worry about that. Distributing funds, these actually pay cash into you, which means that you'll have to figure out income taxes and if you need to pay extra taxes on the income that you're getting from the distributions from the fund. Before buying any ETFs, you need to know the difference between US and non-US domiciled funds. And there's a huge tax differential here. So if you're in the US, you live there, you're a US citizen, then you'll be buying US domiciled funds, no problem. You know what taxes you have to pay from income and capital gains and everything else. If you are a non-US citizen, this is where it gets really complex. And for the most part, non-US citizens usually buy funds called UCITS funds. This is a European directive. It doesn't just benefit Europeans though. If you live outside of the US in any country, you can buy these UCITS funds. And for the most part, they have large tax advantages for non-US citizens and non-US residents versus the US funds. So if you live outside of the US and you buy US property, which exchange traded funds are, so for example, you buy a fund that is domiciled in the US, then the US will take 30% of the dividends that you get paid. It's called a withholding tax. So if you get paid $10, they will take $3 out because you only get 7 back. The other thing is that the US has a death estate tax of 40% for foreigners that hold US based assets. Now, if you hold a US-based fund, an ETF that is domiciled in the US, that will be part of any estate tax. It's above a certain threshold, but if you live in a country without any tax treaties with the US, you get 30% taken away from your dividends, and anything you hold above the threshold in the US, which is very low, you get 40% of that taken away from your estate as well. Now, there are ways to mitigate this with trusts and other types of arrangement, which I can't go into in this video. There's a much easier way and simpler way to get around this, and that is to buy UCITS funds. UCITS is a European directive, but you don't have to be European to take advantage. Most of these funds will be listed in Ireland, potentially in Amsterdam. There's a few other listings, and in Switzerland as well. Those funds will be listed on those exchanges. They are completely different funds, but they hold the exact same assets. If you hold a UCITS fund, the withholding tax goes down to 15%. That's in the Ireland funds anyway. So that's all you pay there. So a much lower withholding tax. And because the fund is listed in Ireland or some of the other places, it is not considered US property. Therefore, the estate tax will be zero, which is massive. So if you're not a US citizen or resident, for the most part, you'll be looking at these UCITS funds listed in Ireland mostly. You can buy them from anywhere in the globe. The reason being is that the current and potential future tax liabilities that you have will be a lot simpler. And so most people outside of the US will buy UCITS. And if you're inside the US, you don't have to worry. You can see that a lot of these different fund providers will have two different websites, the US website and the non-US website. Most of these are UK, but it's not just the UK, right? You can buy these funds anywhere. As we can see here, this is the US version. And if we go on to this CSP, sorry, this is the European version. This is the US version. So you can see that iShares Core S&P, IVV is the ticker, listed on New York Stock Exchange. If you come here, iShares Core S&P, it's the same fund, exactly the same thing, different ticker, because it is not listed in the US. If we go down to the where the fund is registered locations, it's not in the US, right? Registered locations are these exchanges around Europe. And if you look at the domicile, you can see Ireland domicile. That's a UCITS fund. You can see up at the top here, it says UCITS. So US, just get a US fund. Non-US, for the most part, it's better if you're in a UCITS fund because it simplifies current and potential future tax liabilities that you may have. When it comes to choosing fund providers, just stick with the absolute best. Vanguard, iShares, Invesco. There's no need to look elsewhere. I wouldn't choose smaller fund providers. There's just no upside in it. Choose the best, most liquid, and most reliable funds because you're going to be holding these for a long time. So you need to know that you're in a tier 1 organization and just leave it at that. Coming back to something I said at the start of the video about currencies. So there's two aspects at play here. The first is the fund that you buy will be listed against different currencies. So you can see that the share class currency here, dollars, pounds, euros, right? USD, JPY. So that's the first thing. If you hold a fund, what do you want it traded against? If you're in the UK, you may want to trade against pounds because that's what your liabilities are in. Sell the fund to pounds. Okay. Second part of this is that because these funds are investing internationally, a lot of the companies held in these funds may be traded against different currencies. So let's say that you hold a fund in the US and it's in US dollars. You may hold assets in the fund that are earning in and traded in different currencies, Singapore dollars or euros or something else. How do you approach the different currency exchange rates over the course of holding the fund? Well, now you have to take a view on different currencies and how they will perform against the fund that you're holding, which is valued in US dollars. So for the most part, if you're holding for a very long time, you're looking to invest in your retirement fund, so you're holding for 20 years, the hedged funds are really a view on different currency movements. Over a 20-year period, most people don't really want to take a specific view. And so they're just going to buy the normal unhedged fund because what you're looking to do is buy assets and hold them and that's it. If you're looking at hedged funds, you're trying to hedge currency exposure as well. And so that's more of an active trading view. So if you're just investing, hedged funds, really, people don't go for those. They're slightly higher in their expense ratios. And you're also taking a view on the currency as well, which gets a little bit complex. So as you can see here, this is how it works with the currency that you're trading in. So let's say we're trading in dollars, the fund is valued in dollars. If you want a hedged fund, that's when you think that the dollar is going to strengthen. So you're actually hedging that foreign currency exposure against the dollar. So you want a hedged fund. If you think the dollar will weaken against those currencies, right, that those other companies are operating in, then you would want an unhedged fund, because you would want those currencies because they're going to appreciate against the dollar. It gets a bit complex. So what you can do is screenshot these. These are from the iShares materials, and you can give them a look and a think. For the most part, most people that want to invest long term will just go for the unhedged normal funds. And what they're really looking to do is just invest for the long term. They don't want the extra trading, or they don't want to take a view on certain currencies. I've made a list of the biggest world index funds out there by assets under management. This is what most people own. And what I'll do is go through some of these funds as well to show you how to compare them, the fees, the performance, and everything like that. So these are UCITS funds. If you're a non-US investor, then you may want to look at these. You can see the assets under management. And the assets under management do come down a lot as you get lower. You can figure out what type of exposure that you have. So for example, iShares Core MSCI World UCITS ETF. So you can figure out that this is a core position. This is what most people buy. MSCI is an index provider. So they provide an index saying, this is the world index that you need to track. iShares, this is BlackRock, will go and track that index by actually buying the shares. MSCI World, that's just the world index. It's developed markets only. So G7 type nations, larger mid-cap companies, and it has the largest assets under management. You can see the total expense ratio is 20 basis points. Now, you also have Vanguard, and this is the all-world UCITS ETF. Now, notice they don't use MSCI, so they're not using that index tracker. They're actually using the FTSE company index. So the exact holdings may be a little bit different here. 75 billion assets under management. Developed and emerging. So you can tell it's different from this one already, but you can go and look at the past performance to figure out what one you might want to hold, although that's not an indicator of future performance. Large and mid caps here as well. These are the UCITS funds that are most popular. Now we'll go to US listed or non-UCITS. You can see them all here as well. So again, Vanguard is popular in the US. So Total World Stock ETF. And then you have the MSCI ACWI ETF. We'll look at that in a second. This is from iShares. So you can see definitely a huge difference in the total expense ratio here, which can add up over time. So the Vanguard fund is large, mid, and small cap, total market ETF, right? Invest just in everything. And then this is just large and mid cap from iShares. And then you can come down the list and you can see that you'll get maybe ex-US or ex-Japan or something like that. And these are US listed funds. The best thing to do is find out which funds that you may want to go ahead and buy. You can do a search online for that and you'll see a list of all of these funds. I've just shown you the list of the kind of top 5 in each. Then you can go to the fund provider's website. I'll list them all in the description below. iShares, Vanguard, Invesco, and a couple of others. Then you go to the fund that you may want to buy and go to the fact sheet. Click on the fact sheet, you'll get this. It's standardized across the industry so you can easily compare funds. So IXUS, this is the iShares Core MSCI Total International Stock. You can see here that they track the index of large, mid, and small caps, non-US equities. This is the performance over time. You can see that the distribution of dividends happens semi-annually. You can see that here. That's either semi-annually or quarterly for most of these funds. The expense ratio is tiny, it's 7 basis points. You can see the performance over certain years as well. You can go and compare that to other funds. So let's look at the iShares MSCI World ETF. The ticker is EARTH. This is an index composed of developed market equities only. The management fee is 24 basis points, semi-annual distributions here, performance here as well. This is the MSCI ACWI. So this is an index composed of large and mid-cap equities across both developed and emerging markets globally. And you can see the performance right here. Management fee 31 basis points, distribution frequency is semi-annual. The ETF providers have comparison tools. I'll list them below. You can use third-party tools as well, which can compare cross-provider. So I'll list them below in the description. But I want to ask a question. What exactly is the point of buying an international stock market ETF? Well, presumably you're looking for exposure to business performed in all countries. That's great. But do you need an international stock ETF to gain that exposure? So here's what I mean by that. This is three international stock ETFs here, and this is the S&P 500, which is the hurdle rate for the financial industry. When people say the market or the market return, they are referring to the S&P 500, which is the 500 leading companies listed in the US only. So you'd say those are US companies. Well, let's have a look. What we can see is that if you look at the geographic breakdown, these world index ETFs are very heavily exposed to the US anyway. 60% US, 70% US. It's only the IXUS, which is international non-US index, that actually tracks completely non-US companies. Why is that? The biggest companies in the world are listed in the US. Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, right? TSMC, Meta, Alphabet. They don't just do business in the US. These are international companies doing business across the world in every country, more or less. So even if you buy a US fund with US companies, you are still gaining international exposure. In fact, around 50% of the business done by S&P 500 companies is done outside of the US internationally. Buying the S&P, a US fund, gives you international broad exposure. You're buying the best, biggest businesses in the world. The best and biggest businesses are listed in the US, not usually elsewhere. There's a few, obviously. But what exactly are you getting by an international stock ETF? Well, not much different than buying the S&P 500, because half of their business is done internationally anyway. So let's look at the performance over a 10-year period. And you can see that the S&P has returned 16%, which has outperformed these international index funds. That's because those companies in those other countries typically aren't the biggest companies. The US is the world international financial center, has more money flowing into it. So are you gaining broader exposure? Potentially. Has that outperformed over the last 10 years? No. And is buying a US fund only gaining exposure to the US? Absolutely not. You can figure out what the best choice is here for yourself in terms of ease of use, low fees, and then just broad exposure to worldwide business. But a question to be asked, there's no right answer here. You can choose the best outcome that you need for yourself. I'll link all the different resources that I mentioned in this video down in the description below. I'm James, it's MoneyZG. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.